Good morning. Today I'd like to share something that is a little bit outside of the realm of what I usually typically talk about. Typically what I'm talking about is a skill set that you can use, that you can utilize to help you in life, in business, in real estate investing. That's what my passion is. And if I can share those skills with people and it improves a relationship or improves an ability to take down a deal or do something in business, that's something that excites me so much. I'm often talking about soft skills. So that's the skills you don't learn in school. They're typically skills that we need every day outside of school and in life, but we typically don't learn in school. So typically it's about communication and influence and the ability to manage our own emotions. And actually, that's something that I want to talk about today. But first, I'd like to share a way that I've failed in a massive way, actually, this past week. This past Saturday, I was in a grocery store. Bear with me. So this is going to talk about a failing that I have, and then I'm going to pull things from it. There's nothing is ever completely black and white. There are always tinges of advantages and disadvantages to every situation. So I'll talk about the story, I'll talk about my failures and kind of analyze that a little bit and then pull from this what we can use to help ourselves on so many levels. First, the failure. Shopping, I'm in a grocery store and the person behind me is being confronted by one of the staff at this grocery store. The staff member is, and this is fairly important from my perspective, was a visible minority. This is a female, a smaller person who was also a visible minority group from their cultural background. And she was talking to somebody who was much taller than her, who was about 6'4", 6'5", big guy who was white, male, definitely not a minority group, he was definitely a dominant cultural group. And I went around my business, I was just going through the self-checkout. She was asking him to put a mask on. Now, I need to stop here for a second. I really don't care what people believe or what people fight about when it comes to masks or vaccinations or anti-vaccinations or whether COVID exists or not, or whether something is dangerous or not. That's not an argument that I'm getting into right now. That's not where I want to go with this. But she was asking him to put on a mask, and he was telling her that he wasn't going to do it, and she was handling it very well. And it was just kind of going on in the background, in the back behind me. And then something that happened, and where I kind of snapped quickly. I heard his voice behind me just as I was turning around, and he got up in her face, so towering above her, and said, "You picked the wrong guy to mess around with today." He was very aggressive in this. His behavior was bullying. That has always stricken a chord with me in a massive way. And so immediately I went up into his face and said something along the lines of, "Hey, maybe I'm the right person to pick on today." And I was ready to get right into it with him. Now, if you know me at all, you know that I'm not a fighter. You know that I'm not typically very confrontational. I work hard and I teach other people that communication skills are essential to doing far better in life, and in every way, shape, and form. They improve every area of our lives. So this is out of character if you don't know me all that well. If you do know me extremely well, you know that I really, if somebody's getting in my face, if somebody is even bullying me or trying to bully me, I don't get riled up about that very easily. Having said that, if I see bullying behavior in somebody else, especially if it's somebody who's big versus somebody who's small, if there's an underdog, and in my opinion on some level, and there's somebody who is in a position of power, and there's abuse going on there, that riles me up faster than anything else can rile me up. So I got in this guy's face, and I was ready to do whatever. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, right? From this perspective, but was willing to get into a physical altercation with this gentleman. Now, he backed down right away. My guess is that he's a bully, and he backed down because somebody was willing to stand up to him. Later on, he ended up not paying, and they went out, and then there was security involved and other people, and he was screaming about a whole bunch of his personal beliefs, which I'm not going to get into. It doesn't matter. But throughout this process, and then afterwards, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I came home, I was riled up. I talked about it with my kids and with my wife, and we just processed what happened. I processed this with my mom later on that night. I actually went over to my parents' place to pick up some firewood for an event that I was having the next day, and chatted with her quickly about it. And I was initially extremely hard on myself because I thought that this was, why did I do that? Why didn't I handle it in a better way? Why didn't I do a whole bunch of different things differently? And my mother said something very interesting to me. She said, Mark, about 6 years ago or so, I don't remember the exact time, but years ago, she had been in a grocery store and something had happened where she is a white female, she's older, and there was another minority group that somebody was bullying a little bit, and she didn't say anything in that situation. When she came back and we had talked about it a little bit, I must have been over at the house for some reason, she said that I challenged her at that time. This is years ago. I challenged her and said, Mom, when you are white and you're part of the dominant people group, it is your duty to step in to those situations. What guy is going to hurt you? You're an older white female. That's a really taboo thing. So you're in a position of power and you could do something about it in that instant. My mom shared this story with me, which I had completely forgotten about, and said, Mark, I challenge you to think through this and realize that you did something that was right on some level, that you were standing up in a situation that was unjust. And you know what? I was thinking through that, and I accept that on some level. I accept that I had a strong emotional reaction to something that was happening that was wrong in society, and that I did something about it. Now, that small part that I felt something strongly about something that was wrong, and I stood up for it, I feel that I believe at this point in time that that's a good thing. That's a helpful thing for our society, okay? I'm, again, a dominant people group. I'm white, male, English speaker from North America. I'm dominant in many ways when it comes to minority groups. So in other words, I'm not a minority group in any way, shape, or form. So that part I think is healthy. Here's where I don't think it was healthy as I've been thinking through this. It wasn't healthy because why did I have to get into a potential physical altercation with this guy? There are so many ways to diffuse a situation, and I've done this so many times in my life. I know better than this. That there are so many ways to diffuse a situation when there's emotion involved, and there are many, many ways to do this. One way is to crack a joke. You can diffuse a situation that way. Another way is to simply ask questions, and that's my go-to method. I'm not the funniest guy out there. So for me, I typically ask questions and challenge people, not in an aggressive way, but in a curious way that has them questioning themselves and often gives them enough of a break that they can step back and reevaluate the situation. I've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in my life. So why didn't I do it there? Why didn't I do the thing that, in my opinion, would have been best? I could have still confronted the situation. I could have still called out the bullying behavior, but I could have done it in a way that was diffusing and helpful on so many levels. Here's what was happening in the moment. I hate bullies. And for me, there's a very strong emotional response to that. And in the moment, as I felt overwhelmed with emotion, my brain shut off and I acted instead of thought. If I would have taken just a half second more, I could have probably acted in a far better way, diffusing the situation, rather than getting in there with a potential physical altercation. What is the point of this? How does this relate to real estate? How does this relate to life? How does this relate to relationships? Well, I'm going to pull out a few things here. One is the world is really volatile right now. The world is ready to erupt, and I think there are lots of reasons for that. Most of us have been cooped up in our house or cooped up, separated from people that we care about for a long time. I've got some Aussie friends that they're under house arrest. There's no opportunity to really do almost anything. And then that weighs on us. We're social creatures, and we need people. So the situation in the world right now is volatile with COVID and vaccinations and lockdowns and all these other things going on, okay? Regardless of people's opinions. That's one side of it. And I feel that too. Secondly, there was a lot of emotion in me, and when we feel overwhelmed, There's a point on the scale of 0 to 10. When we pass a 6 or 7 or 8, it's different for almost everyone, but 6, 7, or 8, usually we're almost past the point of no return. And we say and do things that we regret because we're not thinking, we're acting. And we are often in a place of fight or flight, which is exactly what I was in. When we are in that place, we are not communicating at our best. And if we can diffuse ourselves before we diffuse any situations, if we can diffuse ourselves, we will react far better. We will respond rather than react in those situations. And I'm going to talk through a few other things here. I realize it's a little bit of a longer video because this is so important for negotiation. This is so important for relationships around us. If we can become more self-aware and understand what's happening in us as that level is rising, 1, 2, 3, 4, before it gets to a 6 or a 7 or an 8, then we can take care of it. And we can step back and we can act with kindness. And we can act we can still be we can still be firm. We can still challenge people, but we can do it in a far better, far more appropriate way. And as I've thought about this and what I want to instill in my children and the way I do real estate deals, often there are volatile situations when there's a negotiation or something else is happening, and that skill set to bring things down gets deals done. More money changes hands. We do better in life, in business, but also in relationships. Think about how many times in the relationship or the communication is broken down because you were reacting rather than responding in the situation. So all of that was going on in that situation. What I want to challenge you to do is a couple of things here. One is the world is volatile right now. And I'm going to challenge you to not act in bullying ways. My behavior in that situation was bullying in a similar way to the other guy. And I'm not proud of that at all. Regardless of whether my intentions were helpful or not helpful, the behavior was not okay, in my opinion. We can challenge in other ways. And I want to challenge you to challenge bullying behavior, if you have a voice that's stronger in your society, to speak up and not allow the volatility of what's happening with the world and other people's fears and concerns get away so that we start acting inappropriately, acting not like humans, acting like I don't want to call lower life forms, because I don't think animals are necessarily lower life forms in any way, shape, or form. But not acting like we're capable of. As humans living in this day and age, we are capable of responding rather than reacting, and helping each other and speaking kindness into each other's lives and taking care of each other. And people are afraid right now. People are terrified right now of so many things. We can help those people. We don't have to get carried away with it ourselves. Although I believe fully that we need to challenge bullying behavior. On the other hand, the second challenge that I have for all of you right now is to ask yourself, what do you need? What do you need as you are ramping up, as you are feeling overwhelmed, as you are getting carried away with anger or fear or disgust or whatever it is the emotion that you're feeling? What can happen is again, we react rather than respond, and then we are not communicating well, and we're not going to get what we want, and we're not going to be able to help others. The key skill here, whether it's a negotiation on a massive real estate deal or a business deal, or whether it's having a conversation with our partner or our kid or a family member or a friend, the key skill is understanding ourselves, knowing what's in ourselves, knowing how we tend to engage in situations or how we react to situations, and calming ourselves before we get to that 6, 7, or 8. Secondly, when we are able to master ourselves, and that's not by pushing down emotions, it's by dealing with them appropriately. I was angry in this situation. There was injustice taking place. That is good. That's healthy in my mind. Anger is fully appropriate in that situation. But I could have responded in a different way if I would have taken care of myself. The second part of it is learning to communicate, learning to diffuse situations, learning to ask great questions, learning to challenge people without being necessarily confrontational. We can still challenge people. We can still care for them as we are challenging them. And that's the last thing that I want to challenge you about today. And I realize that I'm not getting into this too much in that I'm not giving you a bunch of skills in this short video. What I'm doing is challenging you to learn those skills. You are capable of this. I am capable of this. I've done this hundreds of times in the past. I'm ashamed that I didn't do it in that situation. And These are things that I teach. I'm saddened and angry with myself in many ways that I was reacting in that situation rather than responding. What I would like to do is learn from this. And in one way I do this, and this is a skill that you can utilize too, is when you fail, share it with people. When we fail and we share it with people, what we're doing is we're being vulnerable and transparent, but we're also allowing ourselves to grow on a completely different level. If we keep these things hidden, if we keep our failures hidden, then we don't learn as much from them. I want to learn from this. What I leave you with is to learn these basic skills of communication and influence, of diffusing situations, and as well as managing ourselves. And bringing more to this world than more volatility, bringing more to this world than frustration and anger. I didn't add value to the world in that evening. I did something that had some good aspects to it and a lot of negativity to it. And my hope is that I will respond better in the next situation. Feel free to let me know what you think about this. Do not get into the vax, anti-vax, COVID conversation. That's not where I want to go with this. That's not the purpose of this, okay? The purpose is not to get into debates or to argue with each other. The purpose is to go, there's something greater here. The world is dividing quickly. And if you want to learn some of these skills, if you want to ask me some questions or anything like that, feel free to respond to the email that I'm sending this in. And again, if you want to engage and chat about some aspects of these skills, I would love to do that. Here's the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and this is something that I haven't said in a long time in a video. I often end my videos with, "You've got this." And I believe you do. You have the ability in you to make a difference in this world, a positive difference. And you have within you to do better business and to have the better relationships. So that's how I'm going to end it today again. You've got this.